moderator of the plenary session, Technological Leadership in the Digital Ecosystem of the Future. The moderator will be the presenter of Russia 24, Stanislav Nathanson. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Today we will be talking a lot about digital technology and digital transformation. And despite all this, to see people offline, this is precious. This is priceless, and I want to express everybody's opinion. Thank you, University of Plekhanov. Thank you bringing us together. And it's important to have such forums. It's important without any exaggeration for our country, and we expect that next year pandemic will be over and we will have even a greater forum. And this is a strategically important subject for our country. That's why Deputy Head of our government, Dmitry Chernyshenko, he is responsible in the government for the digital transformation. He recorded the video address to the participants of our today's forum, distinguished participants and organizers of the forum, and welcome. This year, the forum unites more than 2,000 of Russian and international scientists, experts in the area of digitalization, AI, and green economy. You will have to discuss and find the new points of growth, going towards reaching the national goal, which is a digital transformation set to us by the President Putin. As a Vice Premier curating digital development, I would like to point out the importance of interaction between the participants of digital transformation, business and academia. The leading topic, technological leadership, is aligned with the scientific and technological development of Russia. We already running 7 federal projects in the area of scientific and technological development and HR, and in November we have chosen 6 mainstream centers on implementation of AI, industry, energy, medicine, biotechnology, smart city, transport, and man-free and cybersecurity, of course. The operation of our centers will enable us to develop the breakthrough technologies of the global level and develop unique competences up to the end of 2024. 8 billion rubles are allocated, and part of them are coming from off-budget sources in the universities in the areas related to AI. More than by 7,000 student places we increased it by the budget, and we will have 10 more bachelor degree and master's degree programs on AI. In the professional vocational studies, 100,000 school children will undergo AI training. Altogether this year, due to the federal budget, we finance a study of 80,000 students by 2024. That study on this area will reach 500,000 people. Russian Plekhanov University, where the forum is being held, is a locomotive in the accomplishment of this task. Training of IT specialists, and they implemented significant projects related to digitalization and AI. Engagement of young scientists and students will mainstream the scientific research results, and we will improve quality of life in our country and level of technological development. I'm sure we will find answers to many challenges. I wish you a productive day. Yes, today's plenary session will consist of 2 parts, 2 discussion topics, and the first part of the plenary session, rector of the Russian Plekhanov University, Ivan Labanov, chairman of the State Duma Committee on Information Policy and Information Technology and Communication, Alexander Hinstein, head of the Federal Service of the State Statistics, Pavel Malkov, and deputy head of the Federal State Registration Service and Mapping, Elena Martinova. And of course, we have a lot of subjects inside the digital transformation and AI to be discussed, but we can discuss it only within the umbrella of the regulatory framework, and we are establishing it. Last year, during the third forum, we discussed what needs to be done from the regulatory perspective, and now a lot of things are already being implemented. The things are changing rapidly. So I would like you, Stepan, to be the first speaker. What do we expect from the Russian state in the area of digital technologies and AI? What kind of legislation? Distinguished colleagues, I will try to be brief. Unfortunately, I'll have to go to the plenary session of the State Duma, and I'll have to be there. And I want our discussion to be productive, and we need to work on a permanent basis. And today we already started discussing the subject matter during the business breakfast, and we will continue doing so during the forum. The digital transformation is one of the main subjects that resonate to the whole society, and in the digital development up to 2030. It's a priority for us, defined by our president. But at the same time, sometimes we substitute the concepts. I'm not talking about Plekhanov University, I'm not talking about our today's forum, where we have lots of professionals engaged. Sometimes I have a feeling that the digitalization, digital transformation becomes a mantra, just another mantra, like acceleration of economic development, technical progress. It becomes just a buzzword. Sometimes the people do not see the point, what the digital transformation stands for. Is it like they are abandoning paperwork and work with the computer? This is just switching to another media on data collection. But today, to ensure that society has a clear vision on the digital transformation, our task is education. We need to educate people at the vocational school level and at the school children level. We need to teach children in ABC of digital and information technologies, and annually we have increasing number of budgeted places at universities in the digital sectors. And sometimes I have a question why these figures are reaching 80,000, and we have only 4 digital universities plus Plekhanov University, no more than 15 universities that are capable of doing these tasks. And then we just have inflated figures, and agricultural and teacher training university that is located deep in the regions, they cannot train highly qualified IT specialists in the same way as the branch of the university in the far-fetched regional center cannot train highly qualified professionals. We need to work on it. We need to rectify the situation. In 2021, the target is 80,000, and 2022 is 90,000 of the budgeted places for our students. It shall be on a fee-free basis. And our colleagues and I discussed it during the business breakfast, engagement of international business. Our market is open for the international companies, has always been, but there is a condition, important condition, and this is related to the legislation. And we need to protect our manufacturers' interests and not violate its right by the international competitors. And during the business breakfast, we already cited examples where IT resource companies, the giants, IT giants, they can give any discounts and give even the negative price to capture the market. But sometimes the international players cannot meet the requirements of the Russian legislation, but violating, not complying with the requirements of the Russian legislation makes them additional profit. They can avoid taxes, they do not pay fines, unlike big and fair Russian companies. The landing law that was passed this year and partially is already effective and will take effect from the January 1st is meant to create fair field conditions for domestic and international IT companies in Russia. This is important to establish a permanent dialogue. We shall not have a situation where the state has to send letters, send these letters somewhere and not getting any response. The dialogue needs to be established. Speaking about regulatory framework and further work of our parliament, we need to ensure digital rights to our citizens. I already mentioned it during the business breakfast. The more active we develop our digital technology, the more integrated digital in our life, the more relevant protection of information and digital rights of our citizens will become. And in our plans is to introduce new plans and maybe we need to introduce administrative liability and setting greater responsibility for violation versus what do we have now. It shall not be that our citizens are not sure in safety and security of data that they provide to the state authorities. Unfortunately, my colleague from information technologies from Moscow is not with us. He could have told us how 300,000 personal data was leaked into the mass media. And these kind of wrongdoings undermine the trust of our citizens to our state. And the opponents of digitalization, they emerge after such negative examples. Sometimes I listen to the arguments of our adversaries and I have to agree with them. Unless the government ensures full security and full confidence that personal data on the address, on place of location, what kind of real estate he has, what kind of cars he owns, what kind of phone number is allocated to this person, unless the citizen is positive that you cannot buy this information at the market or download it from somewhere, we cannot feel that our job is done fully. In this area, we will continue moving forward, and one of the options we are working on, we want to introduce liability not just for those ones who steal other digital data and the ones who use it, who utilize it, knowing the criminal nature of this data being obtained, and biometric data system needs to be developed. Probably you know that from January 1st, the new regulatory clause is being effective. We will have one single biometric system. It will work as the state information system, the system, and the level of degree will be maximum because all the state information systems are certified with the highest level of protection degree. And in our plans, we envision to continue this work. Ministry of Digital Development, Communications and Mass Media are positive that one biometric system can belong to the state only, and the storage of biometrical data of the Russian citizens shall not be done by non-public authorities to use the biometric data in order to simplify your life. It's clear Face ID, for example. The biometric is not required. Today's technical capacity enables us to use the profiles that do not disclose any personal data. This is what the specialists call hash. And from this hash data, you cannot re-engineer this image back. I hope that in the nearest future, these innovations and initiatives will be developed further. And strategically, at the strategical level, the task of the parliament and lawmakers in this area is the following: to synchronize our rights. And we need to have the same rights, online and offline. All of us spend a lot of time in the digital reality, sometimes more time than in offline. Online life has become our natural environment already. This is obvious. and I'm looking into the audience, and each third of you is having a screen time. And maybe I need to wrap up my presentation, but this is a confirmation of my statement. Average screen time of the Russian citizen accounts to 7 hours per day. And I'm not positive that most of you, and myself including, we do not spend that much time with our loved ones. Therefore, online life should be compliant with the same rules and orders that guide our offline reality. I'm standing in front of you and I'm telling that all the requirements that apply to my presentation on stage, the same requirements should have been applied to my online presentation. Victor Chernyshenko during the business breakfast had online presentation. So it's not like I can be in control of every single word, and if I'm speaking online, I am uncontrolled. It shall not be the case. Thanks for coming to us in person. I understand that you have to be with the State Duma. There is an important meeting coming. And once you mentioned the mantra of digital transformation, I thought what to compare it with. It means like we will build communism, the same mantra that we had, and many people resonated with this mantra. Back then, we felt that we will build communism all over the world, and the entire world will live in a romantic communist world, but things are different, and the conflicts became more acute, contradictions exacerbated, the world is divided into two camps. Digitalization is running by a global, enormously fast pace. Russia is running ahead of many countries due to your university, among others, and some of the heads of the Russian universities will be under sanctions, and Russian universities are too good sometimes, and of course this is a matter of pride for us, and then it derives risks. You train the students, increasing number of students in the IT area. You understand you have a powerful mathematical school, traditionally strong. Economic school is also very powerful and strong. That's why you possess these competencies. And to what kind of world do you prepare, do you train your students for? Dear colleagues, I would like to welcome all the participants, online and offline format participants. But once we are talking about transformation, about the future, nobody thinks that the future will be gloomy. Everybody is waiting for the bright future, at least for this person and at large, and the loved ones, the people around, at least it will be bright. That's why transformation shall be associated with the positive aspects, but it does not mean that result is matching the motives, the things that motivated humans for the changes. And we are facing a challenge to make this transformation. You can call it differently. It's a digital transformation, technological transformation. But for us, it is critically important that as an outcome, we have the results that satisfy us as a university, as academia, training further specialists, and the youth that will graduate Plekhanov University or any other university and will become the specialists that will be on demand. At this particular point of time, we depend on the external environment, and we understand if inside our country we are not strong, if we fail to be strong, progressive and advanced, then we will have less opportunities to counteract challenges, and we will be less equipped to face the further challenges. That's why it's out of question that we had in the past many ideas, many concepts, but to destroy it takes not a lot of efforts, but to build it takes a lot of IT capacity, and that's why I believe that going forward we will meet the goals that are set to us by the Vice Premier and colleagues and other speakers. And this is a preliminary presentation. Let me torture you with my slides. In my speech, in my presentation, I wanted to make clear that even having minimum level of resources, you can reach outstanding outcomes. Resources are always limited, and competences on getting best results if the resources are used at minimum. This is our historic advantage of our country. Dear colleagues, please take a look at the first slide in my presentation. It shows relative trends. It's clear that the future of the world depends on each and every one of us, on each and every country, including Russian Federation. And I believe at this particular point of time, we are modestly represented at the global information space in terms of our achievements. That's traditional situation, but in reality this is different. We have lots of achievements, and although on this graph, on this diagram, you can see in terms of GDP, we use our budget funds. Only 1.1% of GDP is used for support of technological development. In absolute figures, it's a little bit brighter story, but if you take a look at the right side of this graph, the difference between the leading countries on financing of our scientific development, R&D, it's multifold difference. Now, this is a historically established situation. Despite the fact that the amount of funds in absolute value that the state allocates for scientific development is, as we just seen at the previous slide, nevertheless, the relevance of scientific and technological progress is understood both by public authorities and by the society at large, and the more so the public, through the special programs and projects focuses on this advancement information society up to 2020, where there was a state program where all state authorities were engaged, and the price of this project in monetary terms, it was 1.1 trillion rubles. And the Ministry of Science and Higher Education in particular, in this particular case, is an executor of the technological development of the Russian Federation program, and we allocate 10 trillion rubles, which is unprecedented amount throughout the history of drawing attention to this topic. Once again, I want to draw your attention to the Priority 2030 program, and Plekhanov University is included in the top 100 universities given preferences and identified as the university with the required technological capacity, enabling us to reach the national technological development goals. Here I would like to emphasize, it's a rather interesting slide. We made a review of information submitted to us by Startup Link, and rather interesting figures showing that even now Russia surpasses other countries in terms of focus on startups. All of us are aware that the startups are the prerequisites of the most significant technological shift, and engagement of startups in the technological agenda is becoming increasingly intense, and you can see Russia even today surpasses other countries on a number of industries. We are number 4 on educational technology, and we are number 8 in the social technology and food tech, and in e-commerce number 10. We are running ahead of many global leaders. Moscow is ahead of Chicago and Berlin, and dynamics of the Russian Federation in the key cities is really outstanding. Also, Moscow is running 9 in terms of startup ecosystem development after Boston, Shanghai, and Tel Aviv. The figures are self-explanatory. Also in Europe, Moscow is the second after London, and we are ahead of Paris, Stockholm, and Amsterdam. And it speaks to the point that we have innovative activity level, and it's not less than in the global capitals, and based on the information submitted to the international experts. Sometimes this information is incorrect. We are not lagging behind, and Russia overall, in terms of attractiveness of startup, is number 14 in the world, and Russia overall takes the 17th place. We are ahead of South Korea and Japan. This is self-explanatory. Distinguished colleagues, our government gives favorable conditions for the science and technology development. There was another big rating agency. Russia is included in the top 10 countries with the most favorable legal environment for IT companies. Distinguished colleagues, it also speaks to the point that our public authorities draws a significant attention to regulation and making favorable conditions for innovative business development, innovative enterprises that going forward will ensure our technological competitive edge. Dear colleagues, once again, I want to thank all the participants of our today's forum. This is the 4th forum, and stepping into the future, AI and digital technology. I would like to thank our colleagues that are here in front of us. They will speak to us. This is extremely important. Any university that trains students, it's important to showcase to our students that the leading practices of the global leaders in the sectors of economy, and the examples, the role models that we can see, they will guide them going forward. Thank you very much indeed, Pavel Viktorovich, and your agency, Rosstat. This is the agency. Those work means work with big data. And we just had the census of our population. This was the first ever digital census of our population, and we gathered a lot of digital information, super big data, the biggest big data about the Russian citizens, and we have a lot of discussions on the fact that Rosstat still collects data by photographing price tags in supermarkets, and during the business breakfast we discussed it, and they monitor the price situation. Such merger, such fusion of the old-fashioned offline methods plus super digital approaches. How do you find balance? What are the risks associated with it, with a greater implementation of the digital data analysis methods? And please share your perspective with us. And I prepared a small presentation. Please launch my presentation. I will provide it to you. Dmitry, in his video address, gave us the baseline strategic areas And I would like to delve into practical dimension. How do we implement it in Rostart? Our principles that are very much aligned with what Alexander Vasilievich said. The digital is not just a motor. It needs to be filled with the sense, with the concept. And Rostart is fully baselined on work with data. And to represent, we need to use this data to make decisions. This is our motto. Digits or digital shall be at work. There are many projects in the area of IT. We began to build statistics by the groups of enterprises, and we've got new matrices. We accelerated calculation of the previous matrices, and we abandoned paper-based reporting. We work with e-reporting. We work with administrative and big data. It is fully a part of our practice. Over the course of this year, we did 3 censuses. There are small business census, agricultural census, and Russian population census. All of them are based on digital technologies, and a lot more on the personal data protection that was already touched upon. And in Rostart, we can have a peace of mind. We keep only anonymized data, and all these areas became possible only due to digitalization. Then the question comes, you just need to buy the required number of PC software and it will work by itself. Everything will be done by itself, big data and indicators like in a SON. And the robots at work and humans are lazy. But unless humans are engaged, nothing can be done. That's why HR resources, this is our high priorities. Specialists are the king. And this year, more than 5,000 students are engaged in the training courses. And we have a big number of programs, and most of them are related to the digital technologies, are rotating around the digital technologies, leaders of Rostart, and we are searching for the talented personnel, and hackathons and contests enable us to find talents, and people are changing. As they get training, they are changing, and people's development is not less important than digitalization. And Plekhanov University invited all of us, and it will determine the face and profile of the next generation of statisticians. And we are already working in this area, and I hope that our cooperation will continue going forward. And then the next question comes. You bought computers, you trained your personnel, and now you can sit and relax. Now it will work by itself. No. We need to have a system of coordinates, and we need to set a direction for development. We need to have a will, we need to have a principle, we need to have a system of rules based on which decisions are being made. Of course, it can be in different formats, in different image, and as a result of having this system of coordinates. And we need to have a lean production, and we need to stick to the project-based management. Lean production, this is a permanent search for the losses in any processes without exceptions. And it's easier to call it the common sense. Digital technologies shall not automate non-effective procedures. The more so shall not create non-effective procedures. It seems that there are simple things that I'm telling to you, but in practice, sometimes digitalization makes processes more complex. 3 years ago, in Rostart, we had the full audit of all computerized systems, and it turns out that sometimes they are filled with inefficiencies. And the audit really helped us. And we are thankful to our management institute from Moscow who did this audit to us. And as a result of this audit, we identified and eliminated all inefficiencies. And this work continues, and it shall not stop. This is an ongoing process of finding and elimination of losses. Digitalization cannot run by itself without this process, and it needs to be accompanied by the increased productivity, not by increased number of inefficient procedures. Another important component, this is the project management. Reaching these given goals within the given times, we need to have understanding where we are now and where we are heading to. In Rostart, we have a project committee. It coordinates and guides all key initiatives. It is done based on the lean processes principle. We shall not overload the executors with requirements on reporting. It shall be minimum reporting requirements. We just need to know where we are and where we're heading to. And even based by the names of the projects, the flow data collection, reducing reporting load on the SME, high quality investment assessment, and many more projects. Altogether, we are running 25 projects. The lean manufacturing and project management are two sides of the same coin that dictate the principles and the direction for our development. And from our perspective, and having such a tool as digital tool set and highly trained HR specialists and system of coordinates, we can confidently move into the future. These are our approaches to tackling the strategic tasks that we defined in the beginning of today's session. Pavel Viktorovich, can you clarify? You had the digital census. Do you assess it as an effective digital procedure or not really effective? We realize that during digital census, there can be lots of redundant data, duplicated data. Sometimes the census executors come to the household and count, and sometimes a wife writes something and a husband writes something, and we have duplicated data. This is the first digital and last traditional census. We used all the sources. We had executors visiting households, Gosuslugi portal was used, and we worked with the data from mobile operators. All these sources we are trying to merge, and there is a myth. Some people believe that all data is present in the governmental systems, but in fact this is not true. The data is not contained in the state-owned database. No one can answer your question. And what is the education level? What is the nationality? What kind of language skills do they have? The marital structure, the household, economic condition, administrative, like Ministry of Internal Affairs, they give us details on registration, but half of the people do not live where they're registered, especially in the big cities. With the big labor migration, and these census included the labor migration issues. This is very relevant, and to get the entire mass of information and can be done only as a result of census. We don't have a single database that give us such details. What digital technology gives to us, and we could not avoid the portal. The portal is traditional way. Many people cannot talk to human beings as executors of the census. For many people, it's more usual, it's more convenient just to fill in the digital form. And the digital technology enable us to merge information from several data sources. Yes, we use information from the executors of the census, but we supplemented it from details from other sources. And the third point, one of the most important ones, the outcomes of the census. It took 3 to 4 years to arrive on the outcomes, to get the final figures, but now 1 year, only 1 year will give us the outcomes. In the month of January, we will have preliminary outcomes, And in April we will have more finalized data, and in October we will have the final. We publish the microdata, and experts and analysts, the universities will be able to make their own conclusions or verify our conclusions. At the same time, we recalculate the microdata, the data sets, and also we recalculate two previous census outcomes. This is possible only due to digitalization. That's why we define it as a first digital and the last traditional census. The next census will be done based on new rules, brand new rules. And why don't you merge the databases? Why don't you bring everything to the ongoing census condition when the entire databases, geolocation database data is merged by you and non-stop census is running? This is the target model where we arrive sooner or later to. And with the MOSO, there is a model recommended by United Nations, and we have a set of registers to be created, and they need to be interrelated, but so far no one got there, and the Scandinavian countries are the leaders. But we need to consider the national specialities, that they already working on these registers for 50 years, and they were made in e-form from scratch. And these Scandinavian countries, they have the same identifiers of their citizens. The population of these countries is just several million people. It's really uncomparable with the enormously big country as the Russian Federation. And to be honest, there is a culture, administrative culture in other countries. And if someone moved from one place to another, they will register themselves. So far, we don't have such a registration culture in place, and we will get there. And the next census will be brand new, mostly built on administrative registers, but so far we don't have them, and they can supplement the general picture, but they cannot act as one single source of reliable information so far. Ivan Vasilievich, and my question goes to you. If a human changes the location, they do this check-in immediately in Contact or Facebook. If we can count it as a registration at the new address, people come, the people photograph themselves where they are, it means they're registered. You are a rector, you are a principal of university. You can have a more visionary approach to it. And sometimes we think it's enormously difficult task to collect the big data, and you are telling that like a big brother, is it like a big brother? But I have a big brother and I love my big brother. What is wrong with having a big brother? And I don't know. This kind of technological solutions in the area of management shall be taken by a consensus. And if so far we do not have a general concept, general approach, and it's not a consensus that if you relocate yourself, you need to register, it will cause lots of rejection, it will be converted into negative response. And your idea, I really like it. The more so, this idea has been discussed by us as well, but in the context of our activity to get accreditation. And we offered this idea, and until recently, accreditation of any university was happening through the documents of this university analysis. And why don't we integrate? Each university has a document management system. Why don't we integrate it to the public authority curating the educational and science policies of the state, and these data flow shall not be captured 10 times, and we shall not populate the same registers 10 times. We have our operating activity, and the body that controls us already has this information. The same accreditation of universities in the form of control is done in a distributed manner throughout the period. We shall not get prepared for it specifically. That's why this is a technology of the future. Elena Valerievna.
The mapping and registration service is passing towards digitalization very fast, and we could see how it changed. For example, the data from the cadastre you can see in the internet. You can see just all these sites, etc. So this is absolutely different level than it was 10 years ago. And every person, the first thing that they use is probably maps in the phone. So this is what we know of the digitalization in the first place, from maps on the phone. So what can you tell us about your development? Good day, dear colleagues. Today we have such a wonderful discussion, or we could even call it, a chat. And we have a very good atmosphere in this room. And I listened to the speakers, to my colleagues, and when Alexander was talking about the mobile phone maps. So I remember when my son came up to me and he said, just Mom, I need to save you, to rescue you. What do you mean? Give me your phone. I'll show you how you live, he says. And then he made configuration of my phone. He made the analysis of the screen time. And then he made automatic blocking of all the applications if they're used more than 10 hours per day. Oh, such a wonderful son. Yeah, he is a wonderful son. I'm very lucky with him. I thought that 10 years per day, this is absolutely going to be enough for me. I laughed at that, and then I thought, and then by the second half of the day, what I saw is that all my communications were blocked. I was starting to get nervous. Of course, I changed the configuration because there is a function like, just go back to the defaults. And then I thought about it that even sitting over here today, I had around 30 different messages. I answered to a few email letters, and these are different sources of communication. So we should, think more thoroughly about what was Alexander saying. And we have to listen to our children, to the new generation, who from baby times are using these applications and who, just know them fantastically quick, very fast. We don't teach them. They learn these things themselves. They have a skill that we didn't have in our childhood. And as Ivan said, spoke about very good systemic right things. And with Ivan Dmitrievich, who work with the Russian Statistics Agency very closely, we transfer information in different digital values. So every day we pass information back and forth. For our priority is implementation of the digital economy. And so whatever we were talking about today, this is probably one of the key things, because we have a good understanding that it's time to change. And today we spoke about artificial intelligence. If somebody doesn't know what is artificial intelligence, can you tell me when was artificial intelligence invented? It was in 1956 by an American computer scientist. In the Russian Federation, just recently, in the 21st, what was signed in 2021, if you know? It was the code of ethics of the artificial intelligence. So we understand how many years have passed after the invention of this definition. Of course, the development of different neural networks, this has been a job in Russia for a long time, but now we have switched to a new phase. Now it's a phase of application. And in my presentation, I made a focus on that. We have a good discussion, so I will speak about how this technology are introduced in our organizations and what benefit it provides for the humans, for people. I'll start with the following thing. You have to understand what our mission is. So the mission is a very important thing, because the major task for us is ensuring the guarantees and rights of people. And I absolutely agree with Pavel that for us, people is a priority. It's a priority number one for us. So therefore, we are aspiring to support the economical development of Russia, at the same time creating and upgrading the space of data. Why? Because all the decisions that are taken at all the level of the power of the government, doesn't matter whether it's at the level of the commercial organizations or maybe various structures, those are the divisions that are taken by specific people about the use of land resources, about and so these data are relied upon, and for this data to be valid, for them to be excellent, this also should, contribute to protection of the rights for immobile property. I'll tell you about our organization first, about the structure of the organization. Actually, the development of digital transformation, it started around 1.5 years ago, approximately. I mean, comprehensive development, because we subdivide these concepts into automation and implementation of digital tools to digitalization. So this is digitalization is a little bit wider because it's a change management, which is based on key areas. Now, above all, this is people. Of course, it means a change in the culture, building the structure, building appropriate management. So we identified the areas and created divisions in 2020 for the first time, such as management of digital transformation and development. So development and digitalization go hand in hand. They cannot be separated. So based on that, all the requirements are adopted. So we understand for such organization as Russian Register Agency, with a territorial distribution all over the Russian Federation, we have 85 regions, more than 50,000 employees. We understand that without a regional team, the development and movement forward is not possible. We were among the first agencies in 2020 to create an interregional working group for digital transformation. In the beginning, people didn't believe in the success of this measure. I remember I made a report on that. We trained 12 people for us, it's such a big breakthrough. And Mr. Dmitry, he said, just look at the Russian Statistics Agency. They have the breakthrough, not you. What is 12 people for such a big staff? And so today we are among the first ones. We have 27,000 people who were trained in this very short period, and we understand that without this training, without education, without people speaking the common language, and we have representatives from various spheres such as engineering, IT, informational security, digitalization, digital transformation. So they have their own slang language. So, and I remember when I was at a first meeting, people didn't understand what I was talking about. It's not possible to make a digital information transformation by a digital transformer. It doesn't, it sounds funny. Digital transformer is always a leader of the process, so there should be leaders who should lead everybody behind them. So in our group we have around 200 people. These are energized, very active people who are ready to work on change management. I always have very hot discussions whose practices are better, whose practices of what region the practices are going to be presented. So they present the work of specific IT specialists, who invent various solutions. So who is going to show, who is going to make a demonstration? We make a competition, we make a contest and choose the best practices and then scale up these decisions all over the Russian regions. So therefore, in 85 regions, we have 175 specialist practitioners and 27,000 experts who have passed that training. And this is not the end. Until the end of the year, there's going to be certificates issued more that confirm the deeper education through online and through offline training courses. I also passed those type of trainings with my colleagues, and even the projects that were made as a training, they are being implemented as well. I'm going to tell you about the project that I did within the framework of my training. It's about Higgs project, and I'll also tell you about the projects that our team made. including the projects on the development of artificial intelligence. So for us, it's a priority to engage young talents. And considering that today we are in a university, I challenge the new specialists who would like to do technology, artificial intelligence, come and work for us. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to provide you with my contacts. Please talk to me directly. We will be very happy to see you among our professionals. And about the results of agencies and departments, it was very good to hear today that what I was told. But when you speak about the results are always numbers. It's statistics. It's indicators. It's not, and it's always not the activity of one single person, but of a whole team. So I'm going to speak about the major outcomes very briefly. I would like to tell you that we made a new site this year, and when we started this systemic reengineering of the processes, and this is what we are doing in the Russian register, we do the reassembly. It's not possible to do the streamlining with the speed that is set to us by the government. Therefore, we spoke to our clients, to customers, to various physical entities, legal entities, to builders, project managers, realtors, notarious officers. We told them, now, dear colleagues, can you tell us what your issues are with the Ross Register, what your questions are to us? So what we saw that there were 600 systemic problems and issues that our clients posed to us. We were not afraid. We did not try to hide away from them. We looked at these problems very deeply, systematized them, and we brought them into 120 real problems. So then we attached them to each process owner, to each specific data that are, we printed them, and then we hang them on the wall of the laboratory in Chisto Prudi Street. And every employee saw them, and we had sessions and meetings, and even the manager, top manager of our company is not here, but he's in the laboratory in the future. So these problems are hanging on the wall, are posted on the wall, and so based on these problems we made our roadmap, and we are moving forward over this roadmap. We also made an exhibition of the Ross Register data. This is the work that we are working on very actively. We would like to make all the services available through the one single window mode. So the portal of the services that are provided over internet are provided on massively. Also, the next service that we would like to provide is registration. So in the first quarter of the next year, I would like this to be already delivered by our organization. 17,000 queries we receive every day through this web portal. You know, the project of artificial intelligence was approved and included in the program of standardization of the program for the development of artificial intelligence. We have developed and provided to everyone 3 data sets, and these data sets are valuable for businesses, for business communities, for governmental authorities. We are ready to provide these data sets, but for the security of the data, confidentiality of personal data, it means that this information should be purified, cleaned from personal data, so anonymized. So we are taking a good care over that. And when the pandemic broke out, you know, in Ross Register, we don't have our own reception windows. The reception windows for Ross Register, it's multifunctional service centers, but they were shut down. So we started providing electronic services. And when we thought that when lockdown would be off, then when the multifunctional centers are open, then the web traffic will decrease. But it didn't happen so. Why? Because people liked the process of fast and seamless interaction when they don't need to leave home to do that. And just if within 1 year, 43% in mortgage, 75, in road accidents, 65, etc. So the indicators that we set for ourselves that are very difficult to achieve, but we would like to make the mortgage go to 80%. So we work very inefficiently with the loan providing society, with the loan providing community. So for around 1.5 years ago, we were among the top 10 agencies in digital transformation. It's so important to build a team. Mr. Dmitry, he built a good team. He's the head of digital transformation team, but we help each other so much in various issues. We call each other over the phone, and we solve questions very fast without a correspondence very quickly. So this provides a dynamism to us. And when I was a student around 20 years ago, I was in Plekhanov Academy, and then there I just entered the financial. I just graduated the financial academy. That's what the university was called at that time. Miss Alla Georgievna was the rector of that university, and then I said that we need to create an so-called the school of active people, because the team determines everything. So exactly that. The team in Ros register is determining everything. And so we are among the top agencies in digital transformation. Ms. Yelena, thanks a lot. It's such a pleasure to see how representatives of the government started speaking in business language. It means we've got a very good feedback. There is a division into processes. You speak now like IT company, commercial company representatives, and it's such a big pleasure. I could see that within few years there was such a good transformation of the governmental authorities by switching to real digital transformation. I can see that you're hearing, and we have Rustam, who is joining us from the Committee of Innovations in the Ministry of Economic Development. Yeah, I apologize, I have to leave because there is another meeting that I have to join. At the end of the presentation, there are my contacts, so please come and work with us. We will be very happy. We will be very glad to work with you. Now, Rustam Sergeyevich, I'm going to provide you with the floor. We understand that the Ministry of Economic Development and big consumer and creator of big data and the topic of artificial intelligence for you is absolutely critical. Good day, dear colleagues. It's true that the topics of artificial intelligence is one of the flagmanship for the university, and we're not only interested in the technology, but also the Ministry of Economic Development is one of the ministries who is directly involved in technological development of the economy. And from this point of view, artificial intelligence is among the top technologies that are highly demanded in the world. There are a lot of startups who work with artificial intelligence. This technology is implemented very widely. People are looking for new spheres of its application. There are new and new possibilities from day to day. The applicability of this technology and the qualities that they enable, such as recognition of images and work with the languages, it's always advancing. There are more and more interesting possibilities and capacities. So from this point of view, I may even say something ordinary, but something extraordinary. But artificial intelligence becomes even more interesting than everything else, because here we can see new opportunities for the improvement of business processes and improvement of the competitiveness. And we can see new opportunities for our companies, for them to occupy new market niches in such directions as unmanned vehicles, recognition of medical images, and lots of other conventionally done things such as art, for example, or mathematics. We also implement a federal project of artificial intelligence. The Ministry of Economy has got a lot of measures associated with the so-called ecosystem. And here I'd like to focus on this part of our activities.
As you probably know, there was a presidential decree on the strategy adoption, and there are 6 big units, 6 big tasks pertaining to the strategy that encompass a rather broad-based activity related to incentivizing of scientific developments and increased data availability, and also creating favorable conditions for startups and entrepreneurs, and traditionally education, mainstreamification of IT technologies, and making hardware more accessible. I mean, our hardware and software complexes and chips that in the world determine the computational efficiency of the algorithms. Let me put it straightforwardly that in the federal project, we try to embrace all these aspects. There are parts and components related to implementation, R&D, and startup support components, and also Ministry of Industry and Trade related to development of the domestic machinery development, mainstreamification of the educational programs. This is an individual standalone stream, and from this perspective, we believe that within our federal project, we are managing to implement the strategy in full. We have certain indicators that describe or reflect the efficiency of the federal project implementation. So there is support from the companies and the specialists who receive this training. They're also supportive of these programs, and our positioning at the top conferences with the asterisks, everything is still important and remain to be important for the business. We've been talking a lot about these indicators, but mostly these indicators are related to the ecosystem development, because the federal project is mostly focused on these aspects, not to substitute the private financing with the state financing. If private business believes that AI is effective, if they already implement it by themselves, and for us, we need to make sure this is domestic, and we don't want to catalyze these processes and substitute the business initiatives. Probably we will not do it. And this is not a goal of the federal project. It never was a goal to substitute the business. Let me, in brief, describe all these activities. Ministry of Economic Development is so keen on telling about it. We are trying to mainstream all these measures, so more companies are coming to us, receive support from us, and broad-based pool of measures. We have innovation, a Bortnik Foundation that facilitates innovations, and we provide grants, and from 4 to 20 million rubles. The bar, the top bar, is defined by the financing level, and this grant support is focused at the initial phase, when the solution is just being created and when it is coming to the market. And SMEs are interested in these grants, and the young teams, students, and former students are interested. And for them, it's a good start. It's a good opportunity to get started and try to bring to the market those solutions that are designed by them. And we have a complementary programs that are also being implemented by the Bortnik Foundation. We call it acceleration. These are the grants up to 800,000 million rubles, and we train the teams to deal with the AI issues. This is a rather interesting educational program that enables to explain how the business works and what are the specificities, where do we need to focus on. And this program is being launched to improve survival rate of the startups, so the grant support measures to be more effective, so as many companies can not make the same mistakes again, so and progress, have a better progress in their initiatives. And we had examples when the teams got disintegrated, and due to this measure, we will try to avoid it. For the first time, at least as far as I remember, we are launching the Open Libraries initiative for the community. Developed this layer by itself independently, but having been advised by the companies, we decided that in order to intensify this movement, we will help. And so we provided grants up to 2 million per one individual, up to 10 million per team, and the whole target is open source development of the open source solutions in the public domain, and also facilitating promotion of our flagship libraries in the world. Maybe this is a strange approach. You might think this is a strange approach to give the public money to this kind of activity. It might seem strange, but it should be mentioned that development of AI solutions is based on the open source. And if we facilitate it, we increase the prestige and reputation of the Russian companies. The recognition of Russian companies is increasing across the world, and it becomes more attractive for the specialists. And our solutions are being used in the software across the globe. That also increases competitive edge of our companies, including the companies that develop these open source solutions. A big amount of work is being undertaken jointly with Skolkovo Foundation. This is another level in terms of maturity. We want to overcome the barrier on implementation of solutions. Sometimes, with a certain frequency, we hear that we have really great developments. We have a prototype, maybe even pilot run, maybe even the end product, but customers are not interested in it. We can understand the customer. It's a big stress to be a pioneer, to implement something which is not really tested and finalized. We want to lift this barrier, and we give grants to the customers, so to make this connection smooth between the customer and executor, so our advanced developments can be really implemented in the companies. And we don't have very strict requirements to the customers, because we understand this is the entry ticket for the executor, and the requirements to the executors are rather strict in terms of it needs to be Russian. It's important that these are the domestic, the Russian technologies, and we are planning to support up to 50 companies over the course of the period up to 2024. And we anticipate that these solutions will be replicated and implemented not only in the specific customer, but at a broader based number of enterprises across different sectors. One of the conditions, and they cannot be an exclusive implementation projects. We cannot finance exclusivity. And the mission of Ministry of Industry and Trade on development of hardware and software complexes, of course, and our machine building industry, from my perspective, is not really mastered the skill, but next year they didn't test it enough. But we hope that next year, jointly with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, we will mainstream it, and we will disseminate it, we will integrate it in the projects, and we will increase the level of interest from the industry stakeholders in our support measures. From the further development perspective, as we move on, I would like to focus your attention on support of R&D centers in the area of AI. These are the organizations that need to create capacity for us for the future. We analyzed our positioning in the world in terms of end-to-end technologies pertaining to AI. We call them a basic technology. And please don't be very demanding in terms of terms and definitions, because what we mean usually by baseline technologies is different. But nevertheless, don't be very demanding on our terminology. This is the image recognition, the speech recognition, and a number of promising technologies. We realized that on the recognition, image recognition, we are at the same level with the global leaders, and you can see by the positioning of our IT companies on synthesis and recognition of speech. Speaking about the Russian language speech, we are even running ahead of the global leaders. If we recollect, the quality of algorithm performance is related to the quality of data sets. Of course, our companies, they have competitive advantage, and on a number of promising areas and patents, AI, we are lagging behind. And despite the fact that we provide big amounts as grants, we already have chosen these 6 centers. This is 900 million rubles plus 300 million as co-financing. And we think this is the right investment for us to make, because they will enable to create extra capacity for the future. And the 6 centers that are the winners, they will work on a broad-based basis and in transport, medical technology, and design of means for the AI. Rustam Sergeyevich, may I ask a question? I apologize for interrupting you. And this question is on the attitude from the government. All the programs, they can be looked at the websites and your resources. What kind of attitude do you have for the AI? Sometimes there is a fear, and fear is a barrier to implement AI. Driverless cars, is it something terrifying and to be feared? Or if we share databases, so they use in e-commerce and later on it can be sold, and what is the attitude in the government? Do they take it as something risky or not? As far as I understand from my position in the ministry, the government is ready to risk, but cautiously, and on experimental mode. We already passed the law is effective, and then we discuss the programs, and on including the experimental mode on each and every area. I think we are progressing quite well in terms of driverless vehicles, both air crafts, and also broadening application of machines that run in Kamovniki and Skolkovo districts. From this perspective, we are cautiously moving on and extending the scope of application. A little bit more conservative, we are moving in the medicine sphere and data turnover. These are large-scale arrays of information that include medical data and personal data. And overall, and by generalizing this data, we can come to very significant conclusions. And I believe we will be moving cautiously, because we need to retain a balance between privacy that is a concern for each one of every of us. But in progress, I'm a positive person. I like to take positive attitude. We will be moving towards a broader application of technologies. And all of you who are interested in the support measures, we have lots and tons of the support measures. Unfortunately, not everyone is aware about these measures, and we will have a second session. Participants, I want to thank you, and the reporters are waiting for you. Thank you very, very much. Let us give a hand to our speakers. One more observation from the first panel. I was the only one who used paper. Does anyone of you still have a pen and a piece of paper? I'm still writing with a pen, and I cannot abandon it. I still stick to paper and pen. I love it. And for the participants of the second plenary session, Sergei Nakvasin, Deputy Head of Analytical Center under the government of the Russian Federation, and Head of AI Project. Please come up front. And also Monty Hagler, the founder and president of RFL Communications Company, please come up front. Nicola Filippo Savoy Veneri, founder and director general of Italian and US-based Look Lateral Company, please come up front. Andrew Zarubin, vice president on science and education from InfoWatch. Yuri Koklov, and head of the board of directors on Information Society, and Boris Nuraliev, head of 1S company. It's well-known IT company that builds information solutions for accounting and lots of other IT solutions. Please have a seat. Sergey, let us begin with you. Development of AI. Break it down for us. What is the government perspective, the public perspective? I'm from the analytical center, and we are a modest organization versus the government, but we are under auspices of the government. I also prepared some slides. Do you need a clicker? So, colleagues, we just had a fascinating discussion related to implementation of AI. And very recently, during a Journa conference, the president had a speech and identified that among the priorities, we need to switch to implementation of AI in different sectors of our economy as soon as possible. And what is the current situation? What is the actual situation in the world? The percentage of organizations that already use AI does not exceed 10 or 20% in the cutting-edge sectors of our economy. And for us, as for analytical center, it was very interesting to find out what are the barriers and what are the factors that hamper this implementation. So we decided to run a large-scale analytical research and come up with the indices, with the metrics of readiness of different sectors, readiness for AI. And before we build it, we began to analyze different factors, different success factors. What needs to be considered to successfully go from the strategic concept on use of new technologies to practical real impact. And you can see this pathway. It begins with the fact that organization builds a data set, builds a certain infrastructure, prepares HR specialists, and takes certain goals, sets tasks related to what kind of effects the company wants to see from the AI implementation. Then implementation is done, and then the outcomes, the effects are becoming visible. And here, this approach enables us, while analyzing these data, to find out what are the problems, what are the barriers in the implementation of AI at different phases of this process. And at the beginning of this year, during our work with the Ministry of Digital Development, we identified 10 to 15 standard problems. They are shown on this slide, the barriers, the 15 barriers that the experts and the management of the companies are facing while implementing AI in their companies, and these sometimes are showstoppers in implementation of these solutions. Sometimes they do not allow to gain the economic effect which is expected. And experts that sell these solutions, they say there's going to be a lot of effect, economic effect, but sometimes this is not the case. Considering our experience that we gained, and considering those problems that we identified in the implementation of AI, 1 month ago, we launched a large-scale survey that embraces 15 sectors of our economy, and the target is to identify most of the effects that companies might gain from implementing this technology, as well as the barriers. Not overall that 10 to 15 traditional problems and issues, but obstacles pertaining to each specific industry. We expected that our survey will engage 2,000 companies, and the interest was such significant, the scope of interest was significant, but even now the number of questionnaires that we received is more than 5,000. And in this regard, I would like to thank all the federal executive authorities that helped us in our interaction with different organizations from different sectors of the economy. And we had significant support from the ministries in the sectors, and due to their support, we gained such a reliable and exact data. To conclude with, I would like to invite you to participate in it. Up to 30th of November, you can take part in it, and any company out of 15 priority sectors can take part. We have a certain link, and you can find the questionnaire online, fill it in, and 5,000 questionnaires are already completed, and we expect up to 7,000 questionnaires filled in, and we will sum up the outcomes by the end of December this year. Boris, I would like you to be engaged in the conversation, because in the part 1 we're hearing the perspective of the Russian government on digital transformation and AI, and probably you heard that in the government they say moderately risk favorable attitude. And yes, we're ready to risk, but we're cautious. Break it down, your perspective for us. And
Are you speaking about this stuff? No, can you just open... Can you open the slides, please? Yes, you're going to be given the clickers. Now, in our opinion, the major bottleneck for the digital economy, probably for artificial intelligence, but I speak in general about digital economy. This is a lack of staff, lack of workforce. So this slide in Russia was the sponsor. Sorry, so this was about the ICPC International Olympiad, international competition in programming. So programmers are really lacking. The deficit has grown by 70%. If you take digital economy, I mostly work with ERP system. Even if you take ERP system, the ERP Gartner company has invented this term ERP. So the Gartner wrote that last year. They wrote now because there is a lack of ERP system specialists. Their salaries are going to grow by 60%, maybe not 60%, but very close to that number. They have grown, and this means a deficit, shortage of the specialists. So this is major problem in Russia and in the world. Yeah, Gartner spoke about the world, not Russia, and here we are within the world's trends. And how to train the specialists in the supreme schools, in universities. IT specialists are trained more than just like other groups of specialists, more than school teachers, more than medics, more than doctors, more than any other specialities. So this is how to develop it. And the government here, I mean, the government is paying very much attention to that. Well, it did in the past as well, especially in the past few years. And for example, last year's summer, the president gathered us together, then the chairman of the government gathered all IT heads. But usually the way it happens, the managers, they come, they make a speech and then they leave. Not this time. A month later, they said, remember there were proposals on education. Are we going to do that? These things we will do, those things that we will not do. So a lot of work was presented and done. What measures do we have? Currently, we have a high demand for IT specialists. It's around up to 300,000 people. And the major source is university education. Just look how the university education should increase under the program of digital economy, because I'm head of a working group in the digital economy program. So it means that before it used to be 30,000 people. This year it's 80,000 people. Next year it's going to be grow up to 120,000 people who have to study in the universities. So it's been a long time fight, but now entering universities through to an IT specialization. So examinations are going to be done in IT as well. Before, just children had to pass the examination in physics. They think, what's so bad about it? Children would know physics as well. But now it's specifically computers that they have to pass examinations in. So they thought that if you pass an examination in physics, it's easier to go and study informatics for them. There is nothing bad if they, just know physics as well, and then they do the informatics. Now it has changed. Now they separately pass exams in informatics. And the training could be provided fast, in an accelerated way. And industry, working group, digital economy, the question is how to do it. Now, if we just pass a bachelor's degree within 3 years or 2 years, it's not good. But in informatics, unlike, for example, nuclear physics students, they work usually in their specialty from the first to the last year. They work in their specialty already while they're in the university. And if in many universities, students have to read, some additional subjects such as like life safety, physical culture, foreign languages, these are needed things, but they understand that if in the university they have to learn one thing, but they're given different things, then they are no longer interested in university, especially in the first years. So probably these disciplines should be provided in the second or in the third or fourth year. So they are interested especially in the first years of studies. And it's very important to engage young specialists so the students could understand them better. And the specialists are from industry. Why do they always use, physical and technical universities? Because, and it was recognized, and there were some sanctions put against them. Well, they were recognized, and the lectures were provided there by academicians and professors, and this should be preserved, because IT is very fastly developing and very rapidly developing. So this task has been set up, and it's not an easy task. For the high school, it's a very important task. So the president was writing to the government, to the Minister Talkov, and they all say, let us count them as well, like business informatics. This is informatics, isn't it? It's also informatics. Probably they don't know how to program, but so they changed the standards. Before changing the standards took 4 years. Now the educational standards was changed very fast. It says now that the specialists have to be able to develop the algorithms that are applicable for application. This is business informatics. So there was a big development, big advancement in there. And probably it should also be taught in Plekhanov University. Business informatics should be brought back to so there should be IT specialists in business informatics as well. There is a lot of things that were done. I also studied, I remember I studied back in 1980s, an automated system of management, and half of the subjects there were just support for the system, like how to program, mathematics. Well, it's clear why programming, it could be programming in Java or in special languages, like 1S used for accounting, or the SAP language. And of course, you have to know mathematics. And then somebody says, so why do you need the system of linear equations? Well, because it's a production program for an enterprise. There you have to know mathematics, and you have to have some practice. And another thing that was taught to us, and this has been lost, this is how an enterprise is managed. That's sub-functional systems. Before we used to have like technical mathematics. Now it's called procurement methods, but this has changed. I remember. I mean, this. If you, for example, call it unhapping, what does it mean? It means, just you have to calculate how many parts there is in a machine, and how many parts should be procured or purchased. So there is there's various methods to calculate, and we have published a number of books, and we are testing these manuals in the university and in the business schools, and we would like to use these textbooks to be used all over the country on industrial economic issues. And then there should be an interaction between universities and the industry. One of the we are creating a special website or portal for a computer company of what could be provided by the higher school, by the higher university. Because universities, they would like to provide knowledge according to the industry demands, but how to do it? So we are ready also to provide our employees as educators. We are ready to provide some cloud resources so the doctors do not, lose time on deploying these systems in the university, so they can just provide classes without getting distracted and things like that. And it's very important to work not only in the universities. We have to start with the school children. And a lot of things done by the government. Look at this Olympiad, at this contest. Vice Prime Minister Chernyshenko is handing a reward. So out of these school Olympiads, school contests, this is a very prestigious Olympiad. That is All Russian Olympiad of School Children in Informatics. And this is the All Russian finals and the minister has come, Mr. Shadayev. So we said, just you see how serious the government is serious about informatics. If you take the contest in geography, Minister of Geography will not come to see you. But here you have a whole minister who comes to this Olympiad. So it means that this is very important. And here you can see the digitalization lesson. And so the school children, they see various simulators. And then the children are told how digital projects are being managed, what is the digital industry, what is the digital plan, how DevOps work. And there are a lot of different purely governmental initiatives and mixed governmental and commercial initiatives. Well, if we teach school children, of course, they can go and work. For them, they may go to a technical school or to university, but at least it's very important to know how interesting the informatics is. For us, for the IT industry, it makes us distinct from, for example, oil industry. In oil industry, you have to work with whales. If in retail, it's a passage between aisles. In information technologies, we speak about applications consisting of various components. For us, it's very important to train a good staff and to work with them. So for us, workforce is extremely important. It means education is also very important. And as an advertisement, I would like to say that every year we organize a conference of the best teachers of the universities. So the problem of the workforce is the biggest problem in the digital economy. The government and companies, they do a lot, and we will try to resolve things together. Well, workforce problem has been a long time issue, but is it worsening or is it becoming less and less acute? Just in a couple of words. Yes, it's becoming worse and worse. But this is good, it means a higher demand. There are more specialists, but there is also a bigger deficit in them. And the salaries have grown by 30 or 40% within 1 year. This means, yes, this problem is becoming worse. But the problem is that our, just compatriots are people from our country. They can work online for foreign companies and make more money. And so this is a breakthrough team on the international market. This is very good. Now, how artificial intelligence is demanded? Mr. Hagler, by lending everything down of what we are talking about. The pandemic is, just making us act differently. For the first time, the pandemic is happening while people are able to monitor contacts. You are able to monitor contacts to control movement of people, implementing different COVID passports, data sheet, but many people are not ready for that. Many people in your country, in the United States, in our country, in Europe, people are not ready to this degree, to accept this degree of digital control through QR codes, through use of technologies. So this is also a big challenge, isn't it? So could you elaborate on that? Boris Simonich, can you stay with us or you have to leave? You can stay, okay. So we still have time. Okay, go on, please.
scattered across the globe so that we can pool resources, we can use local knowledge. And we have been using artificial intelligence. We launched several years ago a confidence index. And we use artificial intelligence to monitor the online presence, the digital presence of 54,000 CEOs and CMOs around the world to see what are they saying. And we analyze that data to then project how confident are they about the world economy and other subjects. It's a fascinating study, and you can find it at worldcomgroup.com. And so we're looking at it from that angle. How are organizations that are represented in this room using it to tackle real-world problems? Food insecurities, gender disparities, income disparities, climate change, access to health care, education access. These are real challenges that affect every country, that affect all societies. And as we talk about the future, I was drawn to the past. 2,400 years ago, Plato talked about the allegory of the cave. And if you remember that allegory, in this cave, prisoners are chained to a block. And they can only look straight ahead. They can only see what is ahead of them. And behind them, there's a fire, and their captors are casting shadows. Think of puppets. And the reality for these people is what's in front of them. They aren't shadows, they're real. It is their reality. Well, that sounds a little far-fetched. This is our cave. We see straight ahead. This is our chain and our screens, your phone, your iPad, your laptop. That screen is the cave wall. And our realities are what is projected for us. It is YouTube, it is TikTok, it is Facebook, it is Twitter. So these are our curated realities, just delivered in a higher tech form. And so what we see is that as a society, our comfort levels with digital technology are always in flux and always require trade-offs. If you take Facebook and Google, I think it's dramatic. 10 years ago, this was the most amazing invention. The ability to access whatever information you wanted at your fingertips, to get answers to questions, to gain knowledge, to connect with Facebook, friends across the world, to make new friends. 10 years ago, the way we viewed those technologies was pretty different from how we view them today. Before it was access, and it's still about access, but now much of our conversations about this technology is about privacy. And we see that there are all these challenges and problems that are associated with these technologies, and it's because it's a pendulum, and we're using technology to come up with new solutions. So a Google search engine, a Bing search engine, where your data is sold because it's free. You don't pay for it, but somebody has to pay for it, so that data is used and commoditized. Well, now there's emerging search engines that they don't track your search history. They block ads. They allow users to opt in. So it's always evolving as our concerns and comfort level with technology ebb and flow. And so it swings. It swings between good and bad, helpful and harmful, productive and wasteful. And we see that AI is fueling revolutions in every industry. It's even my own job as a marketer, as a public relations, as a communications person. There are technologies powered by AI that are threatening to replace my job. And my job is to adapt. It is not to stop. We cannot stop. So the past 40 years have given rise to the knowledge economy. And we know that knowledge flows through technologies and into people. And so anyone who has ever served on a board or a committee knows that decision-making is not easy. we could be sitting up here and all presented with the same set of data and facts. And I will look at it and go, well, this is easy. The answer must be this. And you will look at that same set of data and facts and say, oh, no, the answer is this. Because we all come at it from our own worldviews, our own perspective, our own agendas. And it takes discussion, it takes compromise, and it takes trust to move forward. This quote from Harvard Business Review, Alan Weber, has stayed with me for many years, that the most important work in the knowledge economy is creating conversations and building trust. And I believe that is what this symposium is doing. It is creating conversations. It is broadening our points of view, and it is building trust so that we can take data, take analytics, and make better decisions. And as I think about a few effective practices that go with that, I believe that as we use data, it's important to establish ground rules up front on what data is needed and how it will be needed to drive decisions. If you don't do the hard work at the front end about how are we going to use information, it becomes much more difficult to arrive at consensus on the back end. Involving all the stakeholders up front in the conversation and being transparent with data, hiding information from some stakeholders and not others creates very difficult challenges moving forward. So we have this information, share that information. And finally, I think we have to become more comfortable with making imperfect decisions and moving forward. There really is no perfect solution out there. There is always an unintended consequence to the decisions we make. So we must make the best choices with the information we have and the compromises and decisions we're able to reach as a group and move forward. And so finally, today in the United States is Thanksgiving. It is a day when we honor our past and when we give thanks to our blessings and all that we have in our lives that is good. This is an update of a Norman Rockwell painting with everyone looking at their phone and their tablet. I am thankful to be with you today. I am thankful to join in this conversation.
Спасибо, thank you. Спасибо и вам большое. Я вижу, что мы существенно выходим из графика. Давайте постараемся дальше.
I can see that we are lagging behind the schedule. Let us try to be within the time. Mr. Venere Savoya, my question goes to you. Digitalization of art. Thinks this is impossible. This is something not possible, but it is increasingly possible. And the artworks, digital art, cost sometimes higher. The price is higher than offline artworks. Where are we heading in this area? Please break it down for us.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be here.
Спасибо большое.
What's FIMART? FIMART is the financial market of art. I'm the CEO of this company, and we are trying to build the first financial market for the art market. We understood that to create a liquid and efficient financial market, we have to provide the same tools of other financial markets. So, of course, tokenization and blockchain is the most important technology of this project because through tokenization and smart contract we can create shares of artworks, but we have other tools, and here I'm just bringing a use case of AI or blockchain, because as my colleague said, they are not solutions. They are just tools that will help and are helping to solve problems and to create new opportunities. So, as I said, the tools that we are providing to the people that would like to join FIMART are really important to create trust. One of these tools is the pricing and indexing methodology. One big problem of the art market is the transparency. So we don't have a clear understanding of the value of an artwork. So we elaborated together with Professor Antonio Mele, who is the finance professor of Swiss Finance Institute, and he is the co-inventor of VIX Index. We elaborated three methodologies in order to analyze market trends, in order to price and to have accurate estimates of artworks, and in order to reduce the price manipulation. The first methodology is the simplest one, and it's based on repeat sales. So we have an artwork that was sold multiple times. In this case, we compare the prices of a period of time and we create the index. The second is more interesting because we don't include only artworks that have multiple sales, but we include all the prices of that particular artist or a group of artists. In addition, we add qualitative characteristics. For example, we know that a Lucio Fontana artwork, if we have a white Lucio Fontana artwork, is more important than the green. And for each artist, we can include this kind of specific characteristics. The third methodology is a Bayesian methodology, and it includes not only the hedonic basis, but also an AI provenance score. So what is an AI provenance score? First of all, provenance is everything related to the life cycle of the artwork. The provenance of an artwork is very important because you can understand the economic and also curatorial value of that piece of art. So what we do, we created a matrix of all the most important galleries and museums in the world. We ranked those galleries, those players, and then in this way we can have ranked exhibition. Why? Because if an artwork was exhibited in a very important museum in a very important city, that exhibition have impact on the economic value of the artist and of the artwork. The second part of this score takes information from a complete set of documents, information, and review from experts, curators, and art advisors. This is important because we are trying again to replicate what's important in the real life. And so in the real life, if we have an important curator that is releasing a positive comment on an artwork, that positive comment has impact on the economic value of the artwork. So it's important to include everything that has impact on the economic value of the artwork. Right now, in the world, we don't have indexes that are considering all this information. What we are doing is to collect all this information, is to give all this information to an algorithm based on AI, and to read the quality and the quantity of this information in order to release a score, that provenance score. In this way, we are able to price, to estimate the artwork in a very, very accurate and innovative way. Thank you.
Спасибо вам большое. Давайте вернемся к теме образования. Андрей Владимирович,
Let us get back to the educational perspective. Boris already mentioned the interaction between the academia and private companies in terms of education, because we have a shortage of trained personnel. I'm in agreement with Piotr Georgievich, and let me emphasize that my colleague also mentioned that we are not just lacking personnel. We have to share the personnel with the international companies. And from my team, for example, last year a person went to Germany, and he was not an IT expert, and he was a trainer. You should have kept him because of the pandemic. You should have kept him. Chain and keep it. But we are a democratic society. We cannot prevent, we cannot restrict people's freedom of movement. And the companies are also different. There are big companies with one need, for example, Yandex or Mail.ru, 1S, and they need hundreds and hundreds of programmers and IT specialists. Their model of interacting with the universities is different from our company's model. Altogether, we have only 200 IT specialists. If all of them will be replaced this year, and the quality of our products will deteriorate, we don't have a high need in the personnel like giant companies have. But still we have shortage, and we have a need in specialists. But thank goodness so far we are managing to bridge these gaps at the job market, at the labor market. But our company has unique competences and expertise that are on demand among our customers, and therefore it is on demand in our partners in education. They want to implement this expertise and competences. Here we also face the HR deficit, and the further, the more remote place from Moscow and St. Petersburg is, the less number of highly competent specialists we have, and they and disseminated further to the specialists. In simple words, the professors, the lecturers are in shortage in the regions, and we just provide highly specialized expertise to our students and graduates, and we're ready to share this expertise. The pandemic was favorable to us, and it was in a way for the better to us. And in 2020, we started, and now we concluded our switch to online education, and we minimized our offline activities. Finally, we prepared all the content, and now we can share it with our educational partners. During the last session, Alexander Hinstein mentioned that the regional universities, they don't have hardware and they are not technically equipped. Yes, it can be a case, but this is not the biggest problem. Yes, equipment can be provided and we can improve the technical level, but with the professors, with university professors who are competent themselves and capable of teaching others, this is a bigger problem, and we feel it. We cooperate with the world skills, and if in a region we are launching a competence where we are taking part, one or two experts, no more. And if this is a young mother who is on a maternity leave, so we don't have personnel, and you cannot do it overnight. It takes time to develop, to build up the competency, to meet the tasks that all the world skills set for the experts. These are our approaches. Yuri Evgenievich, I would like to engage you in our discussion as well, and the bottom line. And over the course of pandemic, we can see the demand in different digital aspects got increased, including in our delivery of food, QR codes that I mentioned, and online education and many other things. Does it mean that perhaps we are entering the era of the fast and radical digital transformation. Stanislav, and yes and no. I would like to begin with a different aspect. We keep using the term that has become one of the national development goals, digital transformation. I really not a fan of this term because we can transform to such a way that it will be too much, and I mean the digital development. This particular term means the use of digital technologies for social and economic development purposes, and what are the social economic goals do we set, and it all determine how the technologies are helping us to tackle these social and economical tasks. Today, we already talked, many speakers talked on the barriers, on the obstacles as well as achievements that accompany us on the way going to the digital development. Specialists, competencies, things are in shortage. But if we take a look on what the process of digital development stands for, then we realize that the technological innovations and solutions based on it or service based on it, they need to become mass scale. They need to penetrate through all the areas of the society, and only then we will reach social and economic effect. Only then we will tackle those relevant tasks that are set for us, not building the virtual universe where we can take away people. And so most of their time they will spend in the universe that we build. But someone needs to work in the physical world, need to produce the physical items, consumables, discretionaries that we use every day. And so we need to extract effect from the digital technology, and we need to have a whole aggregate of factors, and we need to real things. We need to train specialists. It's important, but not less important. The other aggregate of factors, and without these factors the process will fail. Development of the digital infrastructure, real infrastructure, so everyone have access to internet, so we need to draw a lot of attention to it and spend resources to it. We need to build trust and ensure security in use of information technologies, and we have lots of challenges and negative effects associated with the use of this technology. Technologies are neutral, and I keep telling my students and employees that technologies are not the guilty parties. The people who use them incorrectly can be the guilty party. Technology is the tool to replicate all the effects, to multiply both positive and negative. But in the same way, this development process depends on the business environment and what is the business climate, if you will, in the country. What is the situation in the companies? Is there support for technological innovations in the company that are associated with the technological leadership and reaching the goals for the stakeholders in the same way, the same factors that I just mentioned. And this is the regulation. Regulation plays an extremely important role, and is our regulatory framework, is it something that facilitates, and we can see a lot of obstacles and barriers. And the regulation of digital development, it's not just the regulatory framework, it's not just the norms and bylaws that today we mentioned it. Mr. Alexander Hinstein mentioned it. It's extremely important to look at the standardization and regulation in the technical sphere that also can act as a support for development of digital sphere. The standards is nothing than the concentrated knowledge of human being, which is in the open domain, that saves companies a lot of resources and not to repeat the same mistakes again, and not to invent bicycle all over again. And self-regulation is also important. And this is the ethical use of digital technology. It's not a coincidence that the ethical code and use of AI, and also 1 year ago we approved the digital data use code. And you know, today at the regulatory perspective, we didn't finalize the ethics in using the AI and technologies. And the technology cannot be blamed. And it's all about humans who sets the tasks, and humans who are guided by morals and ethics. And it all depends on humans. How do they apply the technology? The technology is neutral. It's all in our hands. And looking at the technological development, if we want to tackle the task of reaching social and economic effects, we need to come up with all the conditions that will enable us to reach these effects. This is how do I perceive the digital development process. This is not just a transformation. Concluding our plenary session, I can say that over the course of 4 years, this is the 4th forum in a row. From the first forum, the digital space got changed dramatically. During the first forum, it was like a very obscure image, but we've got driverless vehicles and digital art, digitalization of art. It was very fascinating to get to know. A lot of new turning points that we lived through. And once again, I would like to thank Plekhanov University for this discussion, for bringing all of us together. Next year, when we see each other, let's hope, despite the digital transformation, we will have humans, not robots, in the audience, and we will have human-to-human communication. Thanks for being with us online and offline, both. Thank you.